This is CNN.
In just minutes, President Clinton is to address the nation about his testimony before Ken Starr's grand jury today. On this historic evening, we're back for a second hour of Larry King Live. And with us, joining us now, is Jeff Greenfield, who is CNN's senior political analyst. Jeff, we got about, I guess, 2 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, because, you know, predicting a speech is like a fool's errand, but this I will predict. After the president's speech, his approval ratings will go up. And I say that because every time a president speaks to the nation, his approval ratings go up. There may be an exception, I don't know it. And what will happen, it's what happens in the days and weeks ahead that, in my view, is the real measure of it. But anybody who reads the next day's papers and sees these instant poll calls and says, well, the president did well, should know that presidents always get the people behind them in the first hours after a speech.
Do you expect him to be effective?
I will, you know, if I could do predictions, I'd be at Aqueduct, I'd bet the 8-horse parlay, and I'd buy an island in the Caribbean. I don't do predictions. I think the people will think he's effective in the first day because he is an effective communicator, and people always think their president's effective.
You going to be effective, James?
Yeah, I think you'll do fine.
Dee Dee?
Yeah, I think so.
Not jumping off the table here, Dee Dee.
No, I think he will be effective, and I agree with Jeff. It will remains to be seen if he hits all the notes, if that's sustainable. I think he will. I hope he will.
Look, there's some speeches you want to give, and some speeches you got to give.
Right.
There's a speech you got to give tonight.
By the way, after the speech, we'll have Mr. Carville's comments, Ms. Dee Dee Meyer's comments. We'll have the comments of Senator John Ashcroft of Missouri, Babe Buchanan, the co-host of Equal Time, Reverend Jesse Jackson later. Bob Woodward will be staying with us, and so too, of course, will Jeff Greenfield. As we understand it, the speech is about 2 minutes away. High expectancy?
Well, I think one of the interesting questions here, indeed they will, is he's speaking to a number of audiences in all of this, and maybe the most important audience for him are the Carvilles and the Meyers, his supporters, and whether you look at this and say, wow, he's really met the issue head on, and that you people go out and defend him and say, let's put this behind us, let's look at Starr again and make him the issue, which James did magnificently.
Good point.
I want on a high-low bet, I want the high on the number of times you will hear, let's put this behind us and let's move on. Those are going to be the mantras for the next 24 hours on the part of Clinton supporters. The question is whether the public ultimately says yeah, or they say, you know, we're coming to a second thought about what he did. We're not going to know that tomorrow morning. I think we're not going to know that for days and weeks. We may not know it till Ken Starr gives his report.
Is there any winner in this?
No. Oh, no.
Everybody's loser, right? Media loser?
Absolutely.
The only thing I would say is that public opinion on this thing has been pretty fixed since January. And it hadn't been a lot of volatility out there. And people had said right after it came out, we got to wait and see, we got to wait and see. I mean, every public and private poll I've seen is all been pretty rock solid. And you know, we're looking at now, and last poll I saw is 70-26, and the 26 really, there's only four points for him to grow here. I mean, I think he's getting pretty close to the top of his natural ceiling. But public opinion's been, it may change with this, but been pretty fixed.
A little strange being the one to point out some of the bad news in those polls, but I think the president's character has taken a hit, and I think he has an opportunity, if he's straightforward, to win back people's respect.
Thank you. We are about 15 seconds away from the address of his presidency. We've taken out of the White House and the President of the United States.
Good evening. This afternoon in this room, from this chair, I testified before the Office of Independent Counsel and the grand jury. I answered their questions truthfully, including questions about my private life, questions no American citizen would ever want to answer. Still, I must take complete responsibility for all my actions, both public and private. And that is why I'm speaking to you tonight. As you know, in a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible. But I told the grand jury today, and I say to you now, that at no time did I ask anyone to lie, to hide or destroy evidence, or to take any other unlawful action. I know that my public comments and my silence about this matter gave a false impression. I misled people, including even my wife. I deeply regret that. I can only tell you I was motivated by many factors. First, by a desire to protect myself from the embarrassment of my own conduct. I was also very concerned about protecting my family. The fact that these questions were being asked in a politically inspired lawsuit, which has since been dismissed, was a consideration too. In addition, I had real and serious concerns about an independent counsel investigation that began with private business dealings 20 years ago. Dealings, I might add, about which an independent federal agency found no evidence of any wrongdoing by me or my wife over 2 years ago. The independent counsel investigation moved on to my staff and friends, then into my private life. And now the investigation itself is under investigation. This has gone on too long, cost too much, and hurt too many innocent people. Now this matter is between me, the two people I love most, my wife and our daughter, and our God. I must put it right, and I am prepared to do whatever it takes to do so. Nothing is more important to me personally, but it is private, and I intend to reclaim my family life for my family. It's nobody's business but ours. Even presidents have private lives. It is time to stop the pursuit of personal destruction and the prying into private lives and get on with our national life. Our country has been distracted by this matter for too long, and I take my responsibility for my part in all of this. That is all I can do. Now it is time, in fact, it is past time to move on. We have important work to do, real opportunities to seize, real problems to solve, real security matters to face. And so tonight, I ask you to turn away from the spectacle of the past 7 months, to repair the fabric of our national discourse, and to return our attention to all the challenges and all the promise of the next American century. Thank you for watching, and good night.
James Carville.
Well, he certainly did accept responsibility. He said that one of the reasons he didn't do that was to avoid personal embarrassment for himself. I mean, that was the first thing out. And I thought that I knew that he would do a fine job. He did a fine job. He had to come out and admit that what he did was wrong. He said that he misled people. He said he misled his wife. And I know for a fact that is the important thing to him. And I think he's going to be working on that real hard in the weeks and months to come.
Senator John Ashcroft, Republican of Missouri, did it make an impression on you?
Well, I'm very pleased that the president chose to speak to us and chose to speak to the American people. But very frankly, he implicitly attacked Ken Starr. It's said it's gone on too long. It's been too costly. It's been supervised by Attorney General Reno. If it's been improper, she could have fired Ken Starr if he's out of line. He accepts some responsibility, but then says this is only between his family and God. And truthfully, if indeed there was perjury committed, or if there was subordination of perjury, it's not just between his family and God. Those are offenses against the government. So there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. I don't think this is the kind of statement which had the kind of particularity, full sort of explanation that many people would be looking for.
Would you say you're disappointed?
Well, I am disappointed in his implicit attack on Ken Starr, in his trying to deflect response, saying that the problem caused to the country is caused by the prosecutor. This is
how about the apology, though?
Well, I'm very pleased to have the president say he accepts responsibility on the one hand, but then indicates that there is no responsibility that he owes to the American people. He says this is something between his family and God, and I'm sure those are very important components of this equation, but the American people deserve a president that reports to them and acknowledges what happened, what didn't happen. I don't think the president explained his behavior. He used a new set of phrases so that it's not a comparable, it's inappropriate contact, instead of talking about the kinds of phrases that have been previously used. So we have another set of words. And frankly, what we need is a leader, not a lawyer. We don't need new terms of art with wiggle room. We need explanation.
We all have to respect his wish that this is a personal matter now. It's a family matter. And frankly, I am shocked that the independent counsel, as we learned earlier, would go to the specifics of his sexual contact with Ms. Lewinsky. I don't think that warrants a public discussion. I think we all need to accept the president's apology now and move forward.
Congressman Barr, it did not satisfy Senator Ashcroft. Did it help you at all?
Well, no. I look at this more, I suppose, as a former prosecutor, and if everybody took the tack that Ms. Caputo wants us to take and others want us to take of just bowing down and saying, oh, the man has apologized and said what he wants us to say, to believe, and therefore we have to move on, we never would have prosecuted a single case. And this sets a very bad precedent if my colleagues and if the American public once again fall for this sappiness. All the president said was, leave me alone. I'm not going to tell you what really happened. I'm not going to stop playing word games.
He said he had an improper relationship. You didn't want to know all the details, did you? Did you want to know every sex act?
I don't really care about the improper relationship at all. What I care about is obstruction of justice, jury tampering with witnesses, subornation of perjury, possible destruction of evidence.
He said the questions he were asked were not about that, but they were about private sexual acts. Did you favor the asking of questions about private sexual acts?
Well, there may be a place for those in terms of developing impeaching testimony, but again, my focus would not be on that, and he did not say that there was no questions about anything else.
Right.
He focused where he wants us to focus, and then comes up with this silliness that, oh, I'm going to now go into my private life. The fact of the matter is we must wait to see what Mr. Starr presents to us to see whether there is, in fact, as I suspect there is, a pattern of obstruction of justice. And nobody's touched on that at all. The president said, I didn't ask anybody to lie. Well, of course he didn't. But he did things through words and actions that have the same effect.
D.D. Myers, was that speech a little disappointing? Yeah, I noticed just looking around the room a kind of, I don't want to read anything, appalled.
Yeah, I think he was, he seemed contrite. I think he's going to create a whole debate now about what he meant by inappropriate contact and what he might have said as the details of this deposition leak out, and there's going to be a whole long obsession about what did he mean. And I just don't, I think he was contrite. I think he made some good points. I think he made a just point in saying that even the president should have a private life, because I think that's something that troubles the American people a lot. Too brief, and maybe a little too brief, and maybe a little too much taking responsibility while shifting it.
Well, before we get from Woodward and Greenfield, well, what was your reaction?
Well, the president did what a lot of his advisors wanted him to do, apologize and give the bare minimum amount of detail about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. They had come to the conclusion, at least a lot of the legal team, that he should not go into a full-scale explanation of his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. The biggest problem he's going to have is that he insisted that his comments, his statements under oath in the Paula Jones deposition were, in his words, legally accurate. Well, one of the questions he was asked several times, in effect, during that deposition is, were you ever alone with Monica Lewinsky? And he said, I have no specific recollection of that. Now he's acknowledging that there was, in his words, inappropriate contact, so he had to have had a specific recollection of the kinds of meetings he had with Monica Lewinsky.
Excellent point. Bob Woodward?
In the other audience that the president had to be speaking to was Ken Starr and his deputies. And this war between Starr and Clinton is really become a blood feud, and they're going to look at that and they're going to say, well, there are no grounds in that statement for us to stop the investigation. And the investigation continues, and as we found in these independent counsel investigations, there's hydraulic pressure that just makes it, okay, let's subpoena this, let's get that, and you can't stop the train.
What did you think of the speech?
Well, I think that I want to hear what Leon Panetta has to say.
We're trying to get him back. We lost him somewhere in the shuffle.
I'm not Leon Panetta.
But try to look like him so we can get him.
You want to look in your eyes.
But I, the feeling that I think you detected, and I think maybe with Dee Dee, I shouldn't speak for her, but I'm a journalist, so I do.
Go ahead.
Is that the words were right. I mean, certainly at the start, there wasn't fudging. But I don't want to talk about cosmetics because the speech also at root was a political argument. I mean, and Dee Dee is exactly right. Yes, I take responsibility, but now let me tell you why the work of the Independent Council, and by the way, the speech reflects what most Americans now think. My own feeling was that he was saying, if I can do the subtext, okay, I'm giving you, the public, what you need, which is my contrition, and I believe he feels that. I mean, what human being wouldn't? But then to turn around and say, and that's why we have to rally around the idea of ending this inquiry.
Were you saying you were not impressed?
Well, you know what?
Was it a major apology to you?
What it was the most unusual and difficult speech any public figure has ever had to give. And by the way, I think to judge this on a scale of, rhetoric 8, cosmetology 6, in this context is almost offensive, given what he had to talk about.
But we have to get in, what is the world he's dealing with? And the world he's dealing with, as we reported Sunday, is the family. And he said in the speech, I want to put it right with the family. That's paramount in his mind. That's the biggest problem he's got.
A lovely lady has been added to the panel. We shall get her thoughts, and we're taking some more phone calls. You'll meet other people as well. Babe Buchanan joins us right after this.
I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
Two friends on an island vacation.
I want you to wave to Jack and Buddy. I get Jack and you get Buddy. Oh, Lord.
Everyone's feeling the heat.
They put a little sunblock on that. I don't think so.
But it takes the right man to get you in the groove.
What are you doing? Rolling the kindergarten yards for a date. It's almost 21. They're gonna put you behind in jail for that.
Angela Bassett, Taye Diggs, and Whoopi Goldberg. How Stella got her groove back.
He looks that good with his clothes on.
Rated R. Now playing only in theaters.
Information fed by intuition creates confidence. Confidence, tempered by pragmatism, enables prudent action. Actions come together to create momentum, and momentum can lead to frenzy, which further explains the need for information. SureTrade, a comprehensive internet broker for independent investors.
Well, my Discover card statement reads like a wish list.
What?
Toys. I like toys. I love pinball machines. This will improve my golf game. It is unbelievable to me how fortunate I've been in my life, and I can't ask for anything more. Discover card cashback bonus, no competition.
It pays to Discover. To apply, call 1-800-IT-PAYS-TO. Accepted where you see the Novus sign.
Tuesday, a national town meeting examines the crisis in the White House and its impact on our government and its political institutions. A national town meeting, We the People. Tuesday, 10 Eastern on CNN.
The latest stats, live chats, audio and video highlights. 30 teams, 24 hours a day. The only way to get closer to the game is to be in the dugout. MajorLeagueBaseball.com. What a sight to see.
Lots more to go on this 2-hour edition of Larry King Live. Before we bring Babe Buchanan in, Leon Panetta is back with us. Now, Leon, will you stare straight into the camera? Because Woodward is now going to analyze. What did you think of the speech? Close in on Panetta. Woodward, go.
Look into my eyes.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And we'll hear what you say.
Think,
what did
Leon?
you really think?
Larry, I think the president did what he had to do tonight. He was making a confession, and
He expressed regrets. He took responsibility for it. He apologized to the country. And look, there's going to be all kinds of people that are going to say, well, we didn't get the particulars, and he didn't go on long enough, and he should have, stayed away from the special counsel, and he shouldn't have done this. But, you got to look at the heart of what a president did tonight. The President of the United States acknowledged an illicit relationship in the White House, and he has apologized not only to his wife and his daughter, but to the United States of America. It isn't the end, but it certainly is the beginning of the end.
Babe Buchanan.
It's extraordinarily...
Co-host of CNBC's Equal Time. We always give equal time.
This is really a sad day when you see where the president has taken this country, where he's taken his followers. I was with Nixon, worked for Nixon, while I was reading Woodward's columns in the Washington Post. I know what it does to people, where they put their hopes and dreams in an individual, work for him, and he takes them to a position as he has taken his followers today. And then he comes on tonight, and it's as if the pollsters picked out the key issues and said, this is what to hit. Don't acknowledge any perjury. He doesn't say, he says, I was truthful, legally truthful, legally accurate.
Perjury?
Well, I want him to be truthful for once. Now, you say, okay, well, we believe what he said today. Why should we? First of all, he hasn't told us the truth for 7 months. Now he says he was truthful in January, but he had an inappropriate relationship, which is a direct contradiction. It is not honest.
You thought it was poorly done?
I think he's all spin. And if he wants to put this behind him, he should be honest with us and said, listen, I got pressure, I got caught, I shouldn't have done it. It was a civil suit, and I said something I shouldn't have said. We did have this relationship. He says it was legally accurate. Then he talks about, I'm going to fight and protect my family. If he wanted to protect his family, he shouldn't have let poor Hillary go on point last January and defend him, knowing that it was dishonest what she was saying.
Did we, Jeff, do you think the collective we expected more tonight?
I've got to be honest with you, because it is so unprecedented, I don't know what we expected. I think what we are reacting to is the fact that maybe what we expected was a speech completely stripped of anything but a personal acknowledgement. Maybe what we were expecting under these circumstances was the speech that he did give, unaccompanied by, just for tonight, don't talk about the independent counsel, don't talk about the investigation, just tell us what, we know you're going through hell, and acknowledge that. And my feeling is, it's not what he said in that part that bothered some people, I'm guessing, but that he felt it necessary to move into the political sphere at a time when he is talking about the most personal thing any president.
How about if he just said, I did a stupid thing, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to make it up to my family, I care about them. You never mentioned prosecutor, you never mentioned grand jury.
When you can tell, when people speak from their heart, they touch people. You can feel it. It doesn't matter what side of the political realm you're on. You can feel that this is something sincere. I felt no sincerity. I felt someone else wrote it. He fixed it up, put it in his language. 1/10 of it was what he should say, say I'm sorry, and the rest of it was just to hit the point.
So it was in Watergate language, it was the modified limited hangout route, in a sense.
Exactly, just push it.
And to a certain extent, I mean, this legalistic, apparently, notion of, I didn't volunteer anything. Well, when you take an oath, you don't say, I will volunteer everything. You say, I will tell all of the truth and the whole truth.
Exactly. Dee Dee, on balance, you think, and Dee Dee be leaving us after this portion, and we have more debates coming, and we still not through.
It'll never be through.
Press going to be rough on this tomorrow?
It's so late. I mean, tomorrow he may get a bye just because he's giving this speech, as Bob well knows, on deadline, and I think people will have to sort of give it one day of sort of face value coverage. I think he'll get that tomorrow. I think the danger comes in the days to follow.
Did Jeff have a good point? If he had just said, basically,
I don't think it's the public's expectations, because I don't think the public expected anything. I don't think they were sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for this.
You don't?
No, I don't. I mean, I live in California, and it's just, people are just not out there, and you too half the time. People are just not out there. They're just not waiting.
That's
they
right.
want it
They're
over.
Not talking about it.
But I think this is in his long-term interest, don't get me wrong, but I don't think the public had any particular set of expectations.
That's why Bob's point about who this audience is. I brought this here, I mentioned this earlier in Inside Politics. One of the president's most ardent defenders for the last 7 months, New York Daily News columnist Lars Eric Nelson, wrote flatly today, if he now admits he had sex with her, he is unfit to lead the nation and ought to have the decency to resign. Now, I'm not suggesting that's where the public is. I don't think it is. But that's the danger. If people come to believe that this behavior Just as behavior. Forget perjury. Just the behavior renders him unfit as the head of state. And that base moves away. That's trouble.
What bothers me about it, what I heard, and I want to go back and look at this again, I want to read it again, but what troubles me about this is, I don't excuse in any way his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, but like what we said in the first segment, this happens. How he let it go on for 7 months is what I don't understand. What I think I heard him say tonight was because he didn't trust the independent counsel. And I guess I wanted a little bit more than that. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't hear it right, maybe I need to listen to it again, but I feel like once he knew that Ken Starr had this, and once he knew that a man with subpoena power and all of the tools at his disposal and all the vindictiveness at his disposal.
It was a little unclear, but, you know, one of the very significant things in this is that the public expectation, to a certain extent from the polls, is they want this over.
Right.
And this may come back to hit the president in the head, because if this speech doesn't end it, wasn't there kind of an expectation that he's...
think it's over?
No, it's clearly not over. And, you know, he made a comment. He said, we have to have it over. We've got to move on because it's hurt too many innocent people. Well, those innocent people are people he put out there, the Betty Currys of the world, who had to go on enormous emotional...
Good point, Bear. I got to get a break. You'll stay with us, Dee Dee. Thank you so much. Safe trip back home. Yeah. When we come back, we'll continue with our senators and our assistants, and later we're going to have a wing-ding debate among two attorneys, one a prosecutor, one a defense attorney, that I think you'll find stimulating. Don't go away.
Kenneth Starr, independent counsel, is investigating allegations that you suborn perjury by encouraging a 24-year-old woman, former White House intern, to lie under oath in a civil deposition about her having had an affair with you. Mr. President, is that true?
That is not true. That is not true. I did not ask anyone to tell anything other than the truth. There is no improper relationship, and I intend to cooperate with this inquiry. But that is not true.
No improper relationship. Define what you mean by that.
Well, I think you know what it means. It means that there is not a sexual relationship, an improper sexual relationship, or any other kind of improper relationship. But I told the grand jury today, and I say to you now, that at no time did I ask anyone to lie, to hide or destroy evidence, or to take any other unlawful action.
Generazioni, la famiglia Capece ha prodotto il miglior olio d'oliva di tutta l'Umbria. All'improvviso il mondo è cambiato. Globalizzazione, tragedia.
Perché piangi?
E piango perché tu devi partire per salvare la famiglia.
Ma nonna, c'è un modo nuovo di fare le cose. Io non devo partire.
Come? Mi fai piangere per niente.
It was a time of conflict and crisis, a time when lines were drawn and walls were built, a time when people took to the streets and ideology was imposed by force, a time when nuclear destruction seemed inevitable and the threat was very real. History's most dangerous age, Cold War, the landmark television series, premieres Sunday, September 27th on CNN.
There's been an explosion. We can't get any word yet on how he is.
In the Singer family, you never lose hope, and you never give up. Watch Susan Sarandon in the network television premiere of Safe Passage, Sunday night at 8 on TNT.
Tuesday night on Larry King Live, the impact of the president's testimony. We'll discuss what's next with attorney Roy Black, the president of the Family Research Council, Gary Bauer, and journalists Scott Pelley and Dan Klaidman. Tuesday night, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Tonight, a complete wrap-up of the day's events with live reactions from Washington and the nation. Investigating the president, the testimony. 11 Eastern on...
Isn't it great to have all these new channels right here on this TV? But who makes the decision on which ones? Well, here's how it's done. Comcast meets with customers on a regular basis. We read your letters and your comments on our website. We listen to your calls to our service department. We watch your reactions to our sneak peeks. And we meet with program suppliers to get the best, most affordable product. So, who makes the decisions? Well, we couldn't do it without you. Comcast. Everything you connect with.
The one question I get asked most is, how do I do so many different sports on TV? College and high school baseball, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, and college football. How do I do play-by-play for all those different sports and not get them all mixed up? And I say, hey, it's no different than dribbling that ball 90 yards down the field and scoring a home run.
Scott Graham calls the shots on CN8.
This is CNN.
We're back. We're thanking all of our guests at the end. We've had quite a roster. Right now we go to Salt Lake City, where standing by is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Orrin Hatch. You watched the speech there in Salt Lake, Senator?
I just got back from Iowa in time to see it, and it was interesting.
Interesting is the word. What's your read?
Well, I'm pleased that the president finally took some responsibility for his actions. I really am. But, you know, we've had 7 really pathetic months during which time he has really lied to the American people. And I have to say that he's put his friends and his allies out there, senators, congresspeople out there, and other allies to stand up for him and for what his lie was. And but I give him credit for this evening being willing to take responsibility and to say the things that he did. But I've got to tell you, I was really offended when he started to attack Ken Starr at the end. Look, Ken Starr isn't to blame for these actions. He's to blame. And if you look at 7 months of dissembling and lying, and all of the costs of those 7 months, and really a lot of months before that, if I ever hear another Democrat complain about the $40 million cost of this and blame Starr for it, and the spinmeisters of the Democratic Party do that, I'm just going to blow my cork. I've got to tell you, it's really offensive. But to go back to the president's first part of the speech, he did take responsibility. He did explain. I don't want to know the sordid details of the inappropriate contact, to use his terms, with Miss Lewinsky. But then, you know, he's brought this on himself. In all honesty, he's caused this because it was his inappropriate, or at least his alleged inappropriate contact with another woman who caused her to bring the suit that brought this about. I bet he wished he'd have settled that suit. This would never have happened. Senator, but once that happened, then, of course, we have these problems.
You said if he apologized, you would recommend not impeachment, and you would say, let's get on with it.
Larry, that's not what I said.
Did he satisfy you tonight?
Yeah, that's not what I said. I said that if this is all that's involved was his lying during the Paula Jones deposition in order to protect Hillary and his daughter or for other good reasons, family reasons, I think that the American people would, and he asked for forgiveness and threw himself on the mercy of the American people, I think it would help. And it would probably resolve his problems with regard to impeachment. But if there's more, subornation of perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit illegalities, then, you know, that's another problem. Well, we're going to have to wait and see what Judge Starr's report actually says. But I hope that this will put it behind us. I think the American people will probably, as members of Congress, we're going to have to do what's in the best interest of the American people. And I think with this apology and with this contrition, perhaps the American people will want to allow him to continue for the rest of his term and then, of course, replace him in the year 2000.
You know him very well.
Yeah, I do.
How did he look to you tonight? How did he do? Professional judgment.
You know, it was a tough thing. There's no question about it. This is a tough thing. Nobody revels in this. Nobody feels good about this. I certainly feel sorry for him and his family. There's no question about it. There's kind of a sickness here that has to be addressed by him and his family. But, you know, he took responsibility to a large degree here this evening, and I give him credit for that. And I want to help him. I want to help that family. And I want to help the American people, but this is still far from over. I just recommend that Judge Starr wrap up his investigation as quickly as possible, submit what he has to the Congress, and then I have every confidence in Henry Hyde and my colleagues in the House to look at this and make final determinations. But if there's nothing more than what he announced tonight, I would hope that we would not go through a very constitutionally difficult impeachment process.
Senator Hatch, I thank you for giving us the time. I'm going to go to Senator Ashcroft and Congressman Barr in a minute, but Jeff Greenfield did have one quick question. I'll let him get it in.
Sure.
Senator, the process is legal and it's also obviously political. If the American public says overwhelmingly this is enough, but the Congress decides or finds that there is sufficient ground to pursue impeachment, how do you balance the constitutional obligations with the political reality that the country may want this just done?
There's only one way to do that, and that is for the Congress to do what is in the best interest of the American people. And sometimes that may rise to the dignity of impeachment. In this case, I hope that it doesn't. And I hope that this contrition this evening will help to alleviate that. But a lot depends on what the other evidence is. A lot depends on how widespread the illegalities are. And I think, you know, this is a very difficult situation. I'm pulling for the president. I want him to survive this thing. Frankly, I hope we don't have to have a constitutional crisis beyond what it is right now. But we'll have to wait and see what Judge Starr has. But I think one thing should be put to bed this evening, and that is this is not Judge Starr's fault that this has dragged on for 4 years. This is not his investigators' fault. This is the fault of people who have been lying, not telling the truth, putting their friends out there to defend them when they knew they weren't telling the truth, and doing a lot of things to delay what really could have been a very quickly run investigation compared to what it is today. And the costs, you know, I think of what happened to Newt Gingrich. Think about it. Newt Gingrich, the opponents of Newt Gingrich forced him to pay $300,000 because of the cost of the Congress of what really was a very highly suspect set of allegations. Now, who's going to pay the lion's share of $40 million because of the lying and dissembling and other matters that could have been solved a long time ago had the president been forthright, come forth and told the truth right away, and done the things he should have done?
Senator, I thank you very much. It's been a long day for you, and I appreciate you giving us the time.
You bet, Larry. You're always doing a great job. I appreciate it.
Senator Alden Specter, your reaction.
I thought that rhetorically the president made a powerful speech, but I do not think it's one that we can accept on face value when, according to his own words, he has misled the American people so many times in the past. I think it is critical that Mr. Starr submit his report as promptly as possible. I asked him some time ago to get it ready up to the president's testimony, submitted by the end of August, so that we can make a judgment constitutionally in the Congress. When the president says that he was legally correct, there's a lot of wiggle room beyond that to the issue of perjury, which requires a lot of technical analysis. When he addressed the questions of obstruction of justice or tampering with the witness, asked nobody to lie, well, did he ask people to make a cover story? Did he ask people to dissemble? We have learned from what the president has said in the past that you have to analyze what he says very, very closely. Beyond any question, he's a powerful communicator, and I have great sympathy and great empathy for Mrs. Clinton and for Chelsea and for his family. But the question really is the public interest, and that's what the Congress has to decide. And if Mr. Starr submits his report, we can make that judgment.
Well stated. We thank you all very much for being with us. We'll come back, and we're going to be joined by Nancy Lukey. She is the attorney for Julia Hyatt Steele, and Barbara Olson, the former federal prosecutor, and the former United States Attorney General Dick Thornburgh will join us. Don't go away.
I know that my public comments and my silence about this matter gave a false impression. I misled people, including even my wife. I deeply regret that. I can only tell you I was motivated by many factors. First, by a desire to protect myself from the embarrassment of my own conduct.
Today, people of all ages are out there doing, refusing to give in to the aches and pains of life because of an advanced medicine called Advil. The relief is glorious. Advil works fast, right at the site of arthritis pain, stopping it where it starts. Arthritis to muscle aches to headaches. Advil relieves all kinds of pain. Advil simply lets people do what they love to do.
I've got 13 gauge circular confetti, and your standard circles are square mix. But if you want to make this thing really big, for a couple more cents a pound, you can step up to the Fiesta sprinkles. Now this is exciting.
It's the Isuzu Great Big Really Exciting Sales Event.
Watch this.
where right now, for a limited time, you can get a $1,000 rebate when you buy any 1998 Isuzu Amigo.
I go lower than 18 cents a pound, I don't eat.
They were 5 players who made up their own rules.
People in Hollywood refer to Sinatra gang as the Rat Pack.
5 bad boys who never grew up.
What do you think, Jack? You think we should grow up?
Magicians, monsters, movie stars. 5 friends who lived life the only way they knew how.
I'm gonna live until I...
The Rat Pack, coming at you this Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific.
Log on to CNNSI.com for instant access to the most comprehensive sports news and features on the web. From CNN and Sports Illustrated, you'll get the latest news, real-time scores, the most detailed stats, plus video highlights. Only at CNNSI.com can you access insider reports from the best sports journalists in the business, extensive coverage of the most popular sporting events, and free fantasy sports. CNNSI.com, the ultimate address for sports.
You'd expect breaking news from CNN Interactive, but how about fashion, travel, showbiz, health and medical news, science breakthroughs, weather, plus links to CNN's great business and sports sites. No wonder it's called the Godzilla of websites. CNN Interactive, a whole world of news and information on the World Wide Web. Get it all at CNN.com.
Before we introduce our next guest, some quick comments from 3 guests who'll be leaving us. Wolf Blitzer got to go to file reports, and you'll be seeing Wolf around the clock, of course. Late item, Wolf?
Well, a couple points, Larry, I just wanted to make. The first point is about the navy blue cocktail dress that Monica Lewinsky gave the Independent Counsel. By all accounts, that dress now becomes moot because the president has acknowledged that he did have inappropriate contact, which is a euphemism for a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. I can tell you that the president's closest advisors, ever since that dress resurfaced over the past couple of weeks, had assumed that there was a real good chance that there would be a stain with DNA evidence. That was one of the major motivating factors in propelling the president toward this dramatic evening tonight. Another interesting point, and I'd just be interested in Bob Woodward's reaction to this, is the president's advisors knew he was going to do this, that he had no choice. They deliberately decided they wanted to get the public on board, get the public prepared for what was going to be a shocker. Late last week, they leaked that big story in the New York Times. On Sunday, Bob Woodward had that big story in the Washington Post to prepare the public for tonight. And that's the way the president's advisors have often worked in the past when they had news to release, including bad news, and they did it this time as well.
Well, it's careful reporting and talking to people and saying what's going on. And we were able to say in the Washington Post on Sunday that the president is going to change his story, and that one of the big obstacles is Mrs. Clinton in telling her.
I'm running close on time, and we got a lot of people to get in. Senator Ashcroft, closing comments. Are we near the end, or is it just touch of the iceberg?
Well, in a sense, there's an end here. The president confessed to lying to the American people and to his family and to virtually everybody but the grand jury, where a confession about lying would have been obviously most damaging to him, but he wants us to believe that he was technically or legally correct there. I'm talking from the state of Missouri, and we had a president who took responsibility properly. He said, the buck stops here. President Clinton went on television tonight and he said the buck stops at the independent counsel's office. He shifted responsibility. I think really, you asked about the end. I think we've seen the effective end of the Clinton presidency. I don't think this president can be effective in the future, and I think it's been because of his failure to kind of have the real willingness to accept full responsibility.
Bob Barr?
2 things I think we need to keep in mind, Larry. One is, of course, what effect does this have now on the president's ability to negotiate in international affairs, including security matters affecting our national security? We have a president who has told the world, I am a liar, I am a perjurer. I think that places this president in a very weak position and our nation at risk abroad. Secondly, though, I again come back to what some of my colleagues have said, and that is Mr. Clinton may wish that simply because he has told the American public what he wants them to think, that that's the end of the matter. It isn't. I await Ken Starr's report because I'm more interested in what the evidence of obstruction is and not simply what the president wants us to believe.
Joining us now from, and I thank you all very much, from Provincetown in Massachusetts, P-Town, as they call it, is Congressman Barney Frank, a loyal stand-up Democrat. What did you think of the speech?
Well, in the interest of fairness, I don't want to get subpoenaed. I am sitting down now, Larry. I'm not a stand-up Democrat now. I was sorry.
Little Jeff Greenfield in there. That sounds like something Jeff would say. Go ahead.
I was sorry that it had to be given. This is not a happy time. It is not a celebratory time. The president should not have had that sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. He shouldn't have lied about it. I do believe that what he did was appropriate for this point. And I think what he's done now is to make it clear we're not in a legal situation. We're in an electoral situation in that people can now make their judgment about Bill Clinton. Clearly, there are people who've been supporters of Bill Clinton who will be disappointed by this, and that'll be a factor. He can't run again. We have a constitution that keeps him from running again. If he was a candidate, this would undoubtedly be a problem.
Are you disappointed?
Yes, I'm disappointed. I think that was poor judgment. He obviously had shown some irresponsibility, but I got to be honest with you, Larry, maybe there are a lot of other of my colleagues who were pretty perfect and have never made mistakes. I'm probably not the best guy to point a finger at somebody else for making an irresponsible sexual judgment. There are probably some other of my colleagues who might be in that category. I wish he hadn't done it. I wish he hadn't lied about it. But I don't think it rises at all to the level of impeachment. It was not like the other great impeachment, even controversies in history. There was no misuse of government power here. Indeed, the most serious charges against Bill Clinton from that standpoint, Whitewater, the FBI files, the travel office, they've all quietly disappeared, if you notice. Ken Starr isn't even talking about them anymore. Apparently there's to be no report on them. And I do think that the president was wrong to have had an inappropriate private sexual relationship, and he was wrong to have lied about it. But those are the kind of personal failings that become a judgment about someone's character, perhaps, or their sense of responsibility, but don't have anything to do with the running of the government.
Thanks, Congressman Frank. And when we come back, we'll have a prosecutor, defense attorney, and the former Attorney General of the United States, and final comments from the whole panel after this.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part, for which I am solely and completely responsible.
I will not march blindly into the fluorescent light of Monday morning to a job I do not love. I will not go with the flow. I am not a Stepford worker. I am not a carbon copy. I will call this number before tomorrow because I refuse to work for the weekend, even if everybody's working for the weekend. Today, I will find a job that works for me, where a pat on the back doesn't involve a knife. Today, I will hit the snooze button one less time. Today is the first day of the rest of my career.
If you have experience in technology, accounting, or legal or clerical skills, find out how Interim can help you. Call 1-800-A-CAREER.
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, I'd like to present...
It pleases the court to declare a recess.
It happens every day at the same time. The wheels of justice grind to a halt. For the most lively look at the legal profession. On television, Burden of Proof, with Roger Cossack and Greta Van Susteren. It's a court date you wouldn't want to miss on CNN.
It is the source of live breaking news for the entire world. Available to nearly 1 billion people on 6 continents. It's 7 networks backed by over 3,500 professionals in 32 bureaus worldwide. Its correspondents, some of the best reporters in the business. From its sites on the internet to over 700 global affiliates, it is television's largest and most experienced news-gathering organization. This is CNN.
Because we have other scheduled guests who haven't been with us yet, the powers that be at CNN, I want to thank Tom Johnson and Rick Kaplan and the crew. They're going to give us some extra time. We're going to go over the top of the hour so that you can hear from everyone. Right now, let's go out to Houston, Texas. Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Texas. She is a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Your reaction, Congresswoman Lee, to the speech?
Larry, first of all, I think tonight was an important opportunity for the American people to hear the president directly. and to have them be reinforced in the position that the president holds. That is the commander-in-chief, that is the leader of this nation. I think it is most important that we speak most of all to the processes of government, that government still works, that government is functioning, that there's a democratic process, and to answer any concerns that the American people may have. I think he spoke from the heart. I think he spoke as a human being, and he spoke directly to the American public.
Did anything, its length or his attitude or things said, disappoint you?
Well, Larry, I think that I want to stick to the idea that we all are human. As a member of the congressional committee, ultimately, that may have the opportunity to review these issues, I've always said the facts are the most important part of this whole investigation. I wish we had started with the facts. I hope we can end with the facts. I believe that the president did not speak to me tonight. He spoke to the American people, and it's up to them, as I said in my town hall meeting earlier this evening, it's up to them to be the judge. What I've heard throughout the days that I've been in Houston, people's concern about larger domestic issues, and also a recognition that the president is a human being.
Do you feel betrayed?
Well, frankly, I want to wait until we get all the facts to make any judgments about what may have occurred. I still think the facts as to what has occurred are still open. Being betrayed, let me say that I recognize the president as a human being, and I also recognize him as someone who's committed to issues that many Americans are committed to. I think the American people will have to make that judgment.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Before we meet Nancy and Barbara, who are standing by, General Thornburg.
Speaking.
Former governor, former Attorney General of the United States. What's your assessment of his speech and of Ken Starr?
Well, I think it was a poll-driven speech that effectively told the one side of the story that we're going to hear. Judge Starr has no capacity to report on what went on today. I was a little bit disturbed that he spent so much time trying to shift the blame to Judge Starr. A little history is instructive here. Judge Starr holds his office by reason of a statute that the president signed into law and by appointment by the president's attorney general. And the investigations along the way have been authorized at every stage by his attorney general. So the making light of the real estate transactions and the invasions of his privacy that he claimed had taken place doesn't come well from a president who bears responsibility for these actions himself.
If you were a prosecutor, might you say, well, with the apology for the good of the country, we'll drop the rest?
Well, again, under the statute that the president signed into law,
you can't do that.
Judge Starr has the responsibility to transmit to Congress any evidence he has of impeachable offenses, and clearly there's plenty of that here.
What did you expect from the speech? Did you expect less than you got?
I think we got a very polished, typical Bill Clinton report. It's characteristic of what he's done with the past. Somebody ought to remind him of what a good Pennsylvanian, Ben Franklin, once said, and that's half the truth is sometimes a greater lie. And he has a great capacity to tell half the truth, both in legal proceedings and politically. And I think people are beginning to be distrustful of that.
Is there a way to give that very personally painful and difficult speech? Is there a way to give it well? Could anyone do it?
Probably not, but he does it about as well as I can imagine anyone doing it. It still falls short, I think, of bringing this thing to a close as he wants it.
Wolf Blitzer, we understand, has a breaking story. Yes, Wolf?
Well, we've just been getting some more details, Larry, on how the president is feeling personally about what he's just gone through. And we're told that he believes that this speech that he delivered tonight was, in his words, the hardest thing he has ever done in his life, that he's ever had to do. He also was propelled, was motivated into doing it by the wishes, we're told, of his family, especially the First Lady, who encouraged him or urged him, once she got the full story, to go ahead and take this kind of full responsibility. We're also told that the president does not believe that this speech represented a full-scale frontal attack on the independent counsel, Ken Starr. He was, in his mind, simply trying to explain some of the reasons why he said and did what he did over these past several months. And finally, we're also told that the president feels that an enormous burden, a weight, has been removed from his shoulder. He's been living with this deception now all of these many months. He now feels it's removed and it's time to go on. So this is what the president is suggesting as he's coming to grips with the reality, the enormity of what he's just done.
Thank you, Wolf Blitzer. Babe Buchanan, should we forgive him?
You know, he's obviously, from what Wolf is saying, the spin is we should have enormous sympathy for the president. He's had a tough day. I'll tell you, he has had a bad day, but I don't know if he's the one that should be getting sympathy right now. He went there. He spent many, many hours having to answer questions. It's clear from what he said later, he's not taking full responsibility. And the words he used tell me that those 4 or 5 hours with Ken Starr's people, there was evidence there that shook him up, that he was shaken, and I think that Ken Starr now knows that he wasn't totally truthful and that there's goods that they have on him.
What happens,
It was a
Jeff,
very bad day.
every time we see, and we're continuing, we're staying over the top of the hour, what happens, Jeff, every time we see these tapes now, the appearance with Jim Lair, the speech, the famous "I didn't do it," that woman?
Well, we're going to see those tapes not dozens but hundreds and hundreds of times. I think the question is whether or not the public, which has been saying from about the first week of this incident, okay, that's enough, is going to say, you know, that changes how I feel about this guy, or we knew this already and we're disappointed in him. We knew it at some level that this was not a privately, you know, flawless person. So you, the media, stop pushing it in our face, or whether they come to the conclusion that some people do, that this was a betrayal. I mean, that's the question.
Yeah. In the real world of prosecutors and so forth, Ken Starr's deputies and Ken Starr are going to get to the office early tomorrow morning. They for 4 years have been looking, and Attorney General Thornburg knows this, have been looking for the lie, because they believe, either rightly or wrongly, that there are lots of lies in all of these things they're investigating, and now they've got one, and they're going to go look for more.
We're going to take a break. They've extended us, and we will meet Nancy Lukey and Barbara Olson. They're going to go at it, and we'll be back with more on this extended edition of Larry King Live. Don't go away.
Now this matter is between me, the two people I love most, my wife and our daughter, and our God. I must put it right, and I am prepared to do whatever it takes to do so. Nothing is more important to me personally, but it is private, and I intend to reclaim my family life for my family. It's nobody's business but ours. Even presidents have private lives.
Tonight, a complete wrap-up of the day's events with live reactions from Washington and the nation. Investigating the president, the testimony. 11 Eastern on CNN.
In 1918, Joseph D. Kaplan opened a law office in downtown Trenton, serving thousands of Mercer County residents. In 1939, his son Seymour followed in his father's footsteps. Today, with his grandson Lionel, the Kaplan family tradition continues to help victims of personal injuries.
Hi, I'm Lionel Kaplan. If you've been injured in an auto accident, slipped and fell, or been hurt on the job, come to Joseph D. Kaplan and Son. There's no consultation charge, and if there's no recovery, there's no fee.
Joseph D. Kaplan and Son, 70 North Montgomery Street, Trenton.
You've heard talk about satellite TV, right? Well, it might sound great, but let's talk numbers. Here's some: 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 13. Those are channel numbers for some of our local stations that you don't get with direct broadcast satellite, but you do get with Comcast. And you know, we think that those local channels are important to our lives and to our communities. So be careful of the numbers that you miss out on with satellite. The numbers you've got because you've got Comcast.
What's nice for working mothers here is the new Kids Center. It fosters a family atmosphere.
Today, we're going to read The Rumble in the Jungle book. See Muhammad, see George, see Muhammad clobber George.
And our children learn skills we don't know how to teach.
You got to go to the body. Then you got to work the left hook. You understand?
And when your teacher's the reigning WBA champ, they're going to listen, which is nice.
It's cold out. Don't forget your gloves.
Thank you.
This July and August, order 4 pay-per-view movies and you could get the pay-per-view summer soundtrack CD free.
What's your favorite of his tunes?
Just send your name, address, and phone number with a copy of your cable bill indicating the purchase of 4 pay-per-view movies to this address. This CD is not available anywhere else and features music from pay-per-view's lineup of hot Hollywood hits. Order pay-per-view tonight and beat the heat at home.
You all got some ass?
Enjoy hot tunes and cool movies this July and August with pay-per-view.
Early edition with Donna Kelly and Leon Harris, 7 Eastern weekdays on CNN.
We're entering the extended third hour now of Larry King Live. Before we reintroduce our guests and meet 3 new guests who've been waiting, another quick update from Wolf Blitzer at the White House. Wolf?
Larry, we've just received a statement from Vice President Al Gore, who's vacationing in Hawaii. He probably more than anyone else has a lot at stake in how the public responds to the president's televised address this evening. Let me read to you what the vice president is now saying. Quote, "A short time ago, I spoke to the president and told him that Tipper and I have him and his family in our hearts and in our prayers. Along with the rest of the country, I watched the president's televised address in which he took full responsibility for his actions and apologized to the nation," the vice president adds. "I'm proud of him, not only because he is a friend, but because he is a person who had the courage to acknowledge his mistakes. I am honored to work with this great president on his agenda to the nation, and I believe that the time has come to put this matter behind us once and for all and move forward with the business of the United States of America." A statement just released by Vice President Al Gore.
Thanks, Wolf. We're joined now by, let's reintroduce our panel. Dave Buchanan of CNBC's Equal Time is with us. So too is Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. He's been co-hosting all the way. Also with us is the former Attorney General of the United States, Dick Thornburgh. CNN's senior political analyst, Jeff Greenfield, is going to host 2 town meetings tomorrow night and Thursday night.
Riveted right along with the country tonight. News tent at Wynwood Bowling Lanes in Ardmore. For a while, league bowlers abandoned their games to watch history in the making as the president spoke to the nation for exactly 4 minutes. Well, they were also glued to the president's speech tonight in King of Prussia. News tent at Bally's Fitness, where many people fit the president's speech into their workout. President Clinton gave more than 5 hours of sworn testimony today, where his lawyer confirms he admitted to, quote, inappropriate contact with Monica Lewinsky. Here now is what the president confessed to the nation just an hour ago.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. But I told the grand jury today, and I say to you now, that at no time did I ask anyone to lie, to hide or destroy evidence, or to take any other unlawful action. Now this matter is between me, the 2 people I love most, my wife and our daughter, and our God. I must put it right, and I am prepared to do whatever it takes to do so. It is time to stop the pursuit of personal destruction and the prying into private lives, and get on with our national life. And so tonight, I ask you to turn away from the spectacle of the past 7 months, to repair the fabric of our national discourse, and to return our attention to all the challenges and all the promise of the next American century.
Today was a day like no other for an American president. Instead of holding policy meetings or hosting VIPs, Mr. Clinton huddled with his legal team bright and early. It was 7:30 a.m. The president's closest advisors begin arriving at the White House. 9:15 a.m., one final prep session with the lawyers, followed by a quick briefing on world events. 12:59 p.m., the President of the United States walks into the map room to face independent counsel Kenneth Starr to give sworn testimony for the next 5+ hours. 6:25 p.m., the president's testimony is finished, and at 6:30, Starr leaves the White House without comment. 6:43, the president's lawyer, David Kendall, announces Mr. Clinton testified truthfully. And then tonight, the speech of his life. The president's career, his life's work, depended on it. So how did he do? News 10's Sarah Schulte is live in Marlton, New Jersey, where she sampled opinions on the president's address. Sarah?
Well, Tracy, we gathered some folks here at Olga's Diner. We talked to 2 teenage girls from Cherry Hill. We talked to an engaged couple. We also talked to 2 guys in their late 30s who worked together. And all are relieved that the president finally addressed the American public. As the chicken sizzles here at Olga's Diner, President Clinton hopes that's the only thing that's frying. Trying to avoid a cooked presidency, the president took 6 minutes to admit to wrongdoing, to apologize, and to ask the country to move on.
I was really impressed with what he had to say, and I agree that what he did was enough. I mean, what else to do than to admit to the entire, American public that he had improper contact, whatever that might be.
All people make mistakes, and I guess he's human just like everybody else.
It took a lot of courage for him to come out and say everything he said. I feel sorry for his wife and Chelsea. It's got to be tough.
For these New Jersey residents, there was one point that President Clinton made that they all took to heart.
But it is private. And I intend to reclaim my family life for my family. It's nobody's business but ours.
We should stop prying into his personal life.
It is his private life, but that he was taking responsibility for his actions.
He's right. He has a right to personal life, just like everybody else does.
Now, everyone we talked to hoped that tonight's speech was the end of it. Nobody thought that President Clinton should be impeached. By the way, I did poll everybody on their party affiliations, and nobody had an affiliation, although there was one Republican in the crowd. Live in Marlton, New Jersey, I'm Sarah Schulte, News 10.
News 10 conducted an exclusive poll to find out what you think about President Clinton and his predicament. We asked 500 people in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, would you be willing to forgive the president even if he has broken the law and been repeatedly unfaithful to his wife? 51% said yes, they would forgive the president. 41% said no. This poll was done before the president's speech tonight. And late tonight, more details have come to light about the president's testimony before the grand jury. News 10 national correspondent Steve Handelsman joins us live now with more on that. Steve, what is the latest in Washington tonight, specifically from the president's attorney, David Kendall, about the grand jury?
I've got something for you on that, Renee, and I've got some reaction to the president's speech. Let's start with what David Kendall said. First of all, he came outside, you'll recall, after the testimony was done. The president wrapped up about 6:25 here at the White House. And then after that, David Kendall handed out a written statement which basically said that the president did refuse to answer a very few, Kendall's quote, highly intrusive questions, that's another Kendall quote, to preserve what Kendall called personal privacy. Kind of, Renee, what the president himself alluded to as he explained that he drew the line at some of the questions that Kenneth Starr and Kenneth Starr's prosecutors asked him here at the map room today, Renee.
So the president then could be called back to the grand jury for further questioning.
That was the response by Ken Starr's prosecutors when the president drew the line and said, I'm not going to answer those questions. They're too personal, too intrusive. The response from the Starr side was to say, okay, we'll move on, but we might call you back. Renee, one other quick thing. There's a reaction tonight, and it's very negative from a top Republican up on Capitol Hill. Orrin Hatch called the president
Orrin Hatch was attacking the president for attacking Kenneth Starr. Exactly. Thanks so much for your report. Steve Handelsman reporting live tonight from Washington. President Clinton has 2 years left in his term, and he still has to muster respect and cooperation from the people and from his fellow politicians. Can he do it? News 10's Doug Schimel is live in East Falls with reaction from Mayor Ed Rendell, a close personal and political ally of the president. Doug?
Yeah, the mayor stepped outside of his house just a few minutes ago and reacted to the speech. As you might expect, he applauded his friend for coming clean in the whole matter and allowing the nation to get on with the business of government. But he also mildly criticized Bill Clinton, saying that the timing of this apology was a mistake.
He should have said then what he said tonight. This is private. It's between me and my family. As long as it doesn't affect my job performance, it should stay private. He should have said that a long time ago, and we wouldn't have been here the last 7 months.
Now, one of this area's high-ranking Republicans, New Jersey Governor Christine Whitman, also released a response tonight. Part of that says, quote, the president's behavior in this matter has been reprehensible. His involvement with an intern has been inexcusable. And his failure to tell the truth about the involvement what it has done is subject the country, the office of the presidency, and the first family to 7 months of tawdry news, diminished stature, and questioned authority. Live in East Falls, I'm Doug Schimel, News 10.
All right, Doug. Well, the woman at the center of this scandal, Monica Lewinsky, is keeping a low profile tonight. But back in April, she was here in Philadelphia with her then attorney, William Ginsburg, who spoke to the Philadelphia Bar Association. After spending hours with Lewinsky and Ginsburg, the head of the bar told me tonight he wasn't surprised by the president's admission.
I just can't fathom that he's going to do that. I could easily read between the lines of what Bill Ginsburg was saying at dinner. That, your interpretation? What did you well, that there were something happened there between Ms. Lewinsky and the president in the kind of details I think that we've all come to hear, and that this was something she just didn't want to talk about, wasn't happy about talking about, but would if Starr would just...
Aaron Check said Lewinsky seemed genuinely fearful of being indicted. Since then, she, of course, has been granted an immunity and will not be indicted.
Well, now for some legal analysis in all of this. Even though President Clinton's admission conflicts with his earlier testimony in the Paula Jones case, that does not mean it's perjury. Here's why. The misstatement was not material or pertinent in the Paula Jones case, which has, of course, since been dismissed. So what's next? Kenneth Starr could question Monica Lewinsky again if there are inconsistencies with what the president said today. The grand jury reserves the right to question the president again. Then Starr will draft a report and send it on to Congress or the three-judge panel that appointed him.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson says Hillary and Chelsea Clinton are standing firmly behind the president, and he has their unconditional love. Jackson prayed with the First Family late last night and says the president is finding comfort in Psalm 51. It says, quote, "Have mercy for me, O God, and cleanse me for my sin." As the details and the consequences of the president's testimony unfold, make sure to stay with News 10 and NBC News for continuing coverage.
Well, in other news, there is